Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shrine of Anubis. If you're new here, welcome. And if you have been here before, welcome back and nice to see you again. So, for this video, it's very different from the content that I have given you all for quite some time. Um, this video is more of a story time in regards to something that happened this week. My brother's dog Toby passed away. He was almost 11 years old. My family and I found out too late that he had cancer. My brother was keeping that from us because he did not want us to suffer the whole process. But it is my understanding that he found out when it was already too late for Toby. Everything started about 3 weeks ago when Toby got sick. He was throwing up, he was having diarrhea, he wasn't eating because he was terrified of eating due to throwing up. And so, long story short, the vet changed the food. They gave him, they ran some tests on him. And so we were waiting to know what was going on. In the end, my brother didn't get the tests done for Toby. In the beginning, we had no idea why. We all thought, why is he not running the tests on Toby to find out what's wrong with him, to find out what's causing his upset stomach, making him throw up, making him have diarrhea, making him not eat. So Toby showed improvement in the next upcoming week, and so we were chill. We were confident that this was just a stomach bug or something, and that he would recover from it like he did last year. Last year, in around the same time, around summer, my brother had to travel, and so we stayed with Toby, my aunt, my mother, and myself, to take care of him. But I was the one in charge of Toby, of taking him out, giving him food, and Toby knew that I was in charge, and he would wake me up at 3 in the morning because he was peeing himself. Sometimes he would fall asleep pressing his butt against mine. I might be able to share a picture later in this video. It was a fun time, despite everything a year ago. It was a fun time to take care of him and to look after him while my brother was gone. So we were confident that he would get better because the same thing had happened last year. Except 2 weeks later, he started to show signs that he was growing weaker. He showed positive results that he was getting better, but then he started to get worse again. And at this point, I was starting to become a bit upset about everything and wondering why were they not taking him to get some tests done since they didn't on the first time. And long story short, eventually we would get calls from my brother that he was at the clinic with him, that they were checking him and giving him antibiotics, or so he said, because we don't know if that was the truth, because again, he hid from us that Toby had cancer. Toby didn't show signs of improvements, but we were told otherwise. That he was sent back home with some antibiotics and to give them to him for 9 days and to take him back if there were no results or positive signs or anything. So we were already in the middle of that. Um, Eventually, though, I don't even know how everything started, but we were positive that he would make a speedy recovery. And my brother told us eventually that this second time, when they actually ran the tests on Toby, he revealed to us that Toby had a mass in his stomach, that they were trying to find out if it was cancerous or not. But he also had an infection. Again, I don't know the truth. We don't know the truth yet. Uh, so the tests had showed that the mass was not cancerous. But then again, there are some holes in the story because on the second time later on, he told us that he had cancer spread out throughout his body. So again, I don't know. But that was what he was telling us. And so we were like, okay, he will get better from the infection and the mass. Thank goodness it's not positive. So if he needs a surgery, we can stay with him again and take care of him. But we had no idea that he would have to have a tube on his throat, that he would have to go through chemo, because that part was hidden from us at the time. So here we are thinking that Toby only has an infection and a mass that will eventually shrink in size or get destroyed by the antibiotics. So we were very positive until Monday. I had a dream with Anubis. In this dream, I am holding a book open. There is an illustration of Anubis on the right side, and there's a message next to him going upwards. And in the message, Anubis is telling me he is going to pass away. And in that moment, I woke up from the dream in denial, of course, because in my mind, in my heart, I was like, no, it must be my anxiety, my paranoia. Toby is not going to pass away because he only has an infection and a mass that turned out to be negative, so he will be fine. However, my mom has been wanting to visit Toby to see him and see if, get a reaction from him, his tail wagging or him sniffing us or something or barking at us. So on Thursday, I believe it was Thursday, yes, we decided to take the leap and go visit my brother. He was going to come by on Wednesday, but we told him, stay there. It's raining. Don't take Toby out. If he's weak and not wanting to move, just let him rest. So on Thursday, we go to visit him by surprise. So we didn't tell my brother anything. We showed up unannounced. Thank goodness we did, because Toby would have passed away without us saying goodbye on accident, without knowing that he was going to pass away. So on Thursday, we came to visit in the afternoon, but they were absolutely destroyed. My brother and his fiance, they were absolutely shattered. And my mother and I were so positive. We were so full of energy and optimism, and we were like, he's gonna get fine, it's all gonna be good. But we didn't see any spark of hope in their eyes. And so it was actually alarming when we would have some time for ourselves, my mom and I, to talk. My aunt was working, so she wasn't able to say goodbye to Toby. Um, there was something going on in that apartment because the energy felt very heavy. My mom could feel death around. And this was all before knowing what was going on. We came with the idea that Toby only had an infection and a mass that he was going to recover from as well. Um, so when we arrived, of course, they were very cold and detached with us. They had absolutely no energy, and now we understand why they were so shattered and so heartbroken. But at the same time, it's unfair that they hid this from us and kept the suffering to themselves. Um, so when we arrived, we went up to the apartment. So we were wondering, where is Toby? So my brother tells us, oh, he isolated himself in our bathroom since last night. He has been hiding in the shower. This was on Thursday. My dream with Anubis was on Monday. So internally, I am slightly panicking, but trying to push the thoughts away. And so we walk into the bathroom, which was dark. It only had like an LED candle on the bathroom sink um, to, to have some light for Toby. And so we stepped into the shower, and there he was, right underneath the shower head. He was just cornered right there. He was resting on some bed sheets that my brother had put in for him to lie down on and rest in. And he was curled up into a ball. He would not look at me. He would not look at mom. He would not wag his tail. He kept his head down the entire time. It was very heartbreaking to see him in that position and in that situation. But being our optimistic selves, we thought that, well, he is only weak. He needs an IV or something to give him energy so that he can recover. And so my mother couldn't really kneel or squat or anything due to her knee surgery. So she could barely touch him. She couldn't kiss him. I managed to sit down next to him in the shower, and I was able to be with him and caress him and kiss him. Now, we spent a couple hours with them waiting on the vet to call us back. To call them back to see what to do because Toby had not eaten since the day before. He was refusing food, water, and the antibiotics. So my mom and I found that very alarming and strange. We also found that out in that moment. So at some point, we are all in the living room talking and waiting. And so I go back to the bathroom from their bedroom, and I sat next to Toby in the shower. And he would look at me. He was alert. He was fully alert. He had his eyes on me. And so I was crying a little bit next to him. So at some point, he's looking at me, he's making eye contact with me, but then out of nowhere, he raises up his head and looks to his left side, which would be over my right side, where the entrance to the bathroom is. And so he lifts up his head and looks to his left side, which would be over my right shoulder, and his eyes widened. So I looked to my right side to look at the entrance of the bathroom, but no one was there. However, I knew that it was Anubis. I knew that he was there with us. But in my head, I just didn't want to admit what was going to happen. So eventually we had to go. The doctor called and she told them to bring him in. So we were very positive. So I was like, well, good, because that way he's going to have his IV, he's going to get vitamins, food, nutrients, whatever he needs to get back up again. So was my mom. And so my mom couldn't kiss him or bend over to touch him or whatever. So I did. I approached him and I knelt and I kissed him on the top of his head and I was like, "Goodbye, Toby. I love you. Everything will be well." So a few hours later, my brother called us on FaceTime to tell us that Toby had to be put down. And that's when he revealed to us that he had cancer. And the doctors told him that they could make the surgery, but Toby would only live a few days after it, and he would have to have a tube down his throat and you know, have that scar there in his stomach. That's when my brother told us that he was bleeding internally and that his intestines were swollen. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know. I'm not sure how everything actually was, because eventually, I think it was yesterday, Saturday, 2 days later, we started to think about things and we found out that the time that they ran the tests 2 weeks ago with the mass and everything, we think that the results were actually positive and that he had cancer and that there were no chances, but that my brother was keeping that from us. So we don't know. Of course, you can't imagine how we were that day, that Thursday evening, and of course they didn't want to take him to the vet to put him down, but they had to do it, and so there was a lot of crying and mourning and frustration and questioning, and yeah. So Friday arrived and I had a dream where I am in this temple, and this temple does not have a ceiling. So I look up and I can see the stars as if this temple was floating in outer space. I can see a lot of nebulas in different colors: purples, lilacs, fuchsia, pinks, and a bunch of stars. And next to my right, there is a wall with many rounded windows spread out throughout this wall. And so I am peeking through these different windows to see what's on the other side of this wall. And so in one of the windows, I see this white room with only a table and a pillow where Toby is resting on and looking at me from that table. Anubis was next to me at my actual left side, um, in the room where I am in. So Toby is alone on the other side of this wall in this room. And so I look to Anubis and I tell him, hey, I would like to see Toby up close. Can I go in? Is there a way that I can get in? But Anubis tells me, you cannot go in because it's not your time yet. And so in that moment, I knew that what he meant by that is that I would need to be dead in order to make it across that room or place or whatever. And so in the dream, I knew that he would be in charge of Toby. So when I woke up that morning, I told my mom I knew that I needed to prepare something in my altar. I knew something about the opening of the mouth ceremony, but I'm not experienced in that. So I was like, what can I do that I can actually do for him for his passing? Since Anubis told me clearly that he would be in charge of Toby, what can I do? And so I knew that I had to start doing everything by the afternoon, by 12. So I go to my room, I look at my altar, I start to take out my incense and the candle that I was lighting for him, the 7-day candles that you get inside a crystal container, glass container. I had lit that up on Monday for his actual healing. But on Friday, actually Thursday, the Thursday night, I changed the focus of the candle from healing to his passing. So I lit up the candle. I popped out my myrrh incense. I ran out of it. I popped out my frankincense, which Anubis likes. Many underworld deities like those incenses, and if I am not mistaken, they use these when someone is about to move on, and also when they are taking care of the corpse during the embalming process. If I am not mistaken, again. So I take everything out. My 2 statues of Anubis are right there. My skulls, they're not real skulls. They're just from the dollar store from Halloween, but I have used them in my altar for Anubis. So I started to rearrange a couple things in the altar. The mask that I used for my Halloween costume last year, I had the idea of placing it in the altar. It was actually an idea that he gave me. So I took the mask from underneath my bed and I placed it on my altar next to his statues. I placed a picture of Toby with a skull pinching it so it wouldn't fly off. And so I started to use my singing bowl to cleanse the energy, the space, the environment, and with the vibration of the sound to help Toby to stay calm and to detach from his physical body, to let go, to transition peacefully, quickly, and painlessly. That was my intention with the singing bowl, and I spent about 30 minutes to an hour on my knees in front of my altar with the singing bowl. The next step that I made was to start lighting the incense, the actual frankincense. I didn't have myrrh on Friday. So at first it was just one stick, and I kept cleansing the altar and moving the smoke around Toby's picture and the statues of Anubis and the mask. Um, and I stood there for another hour, um, just cleansing the altar, the statues, the mask, and Toby's picture, and just focusing on Anubis, because Anubis wanted to take care of Toby and pick him up. So I was focusing on the energy of Anubis coming towards Toby and taking him away, and making the process of Toby as peaceful and painless as possible. And so the hour passed, the incense burned completely. I get a text from my brother, and he tells me, pray for us. Pray, because he's leaving us. And so my mother was already in my bedroom already for the past 20 to 30 minutes, because I had invited her to come in. And so she was praying on a corner and crying while I was working on the altar. And so I told her, Mom, my brother told me this. And so she started crying, but I immediately took out 3 frankincenses and I lit them all up from the candle that was already lit. And I started to spread all the smoke around the altar again. It was a very simple ritual ceremony, however you want to call it, but very focused on Anubis and Toby. And the main intention was for him to pass on as peacefully, as painlessly as possible. I heard a bark from outside. It was only one time that I heard a bark. I assumed that maybe someone was taking their dog outside, but typically dogs bark more than once if they see someone else, or if they are excited or playful or something. They tend to bark more than one time, right? So I don't know if there was an actual person with a dog outside or not, but a minute later, my brother texted me that Toby was gone. And so, of course, you can imagine my mom started crying and crying, and I was also crying, but I did my best to stay strong in the altar while I continued with my 3 incense sticks and you know, working the altar. And eventually the incense sticks burnt all the way down, and we hugged and we cried, and I don't know how much time went by. I am assuming 2 hours or so. And we knew that they were busy with everything, with the pain, the mourning, the crying, the doctors and everything. Eventually, later that day, my brother calls me on FaceTime. And so he told us that they actually never made it to the vet's office because Toby passed away in the car with them. He passed away naturally. So he started to explain what happened that day. When they woke up, they saw Toby in between the hallway of the bathroom and the bedroom. Because there is a very tiny, short hallway inside our bedroom, dividing the bedroom from the hallway, from the bathroom and the door to walk out of the bedroom. And so Toby was in between that space, looking at them lying down on the bed. And my brother knew that it was a sign that Toby was telling them, "It's my time to go. Take me." And so they started to get dressed and they took him downstairs. And so when they are about to get in the car, his fiancee is holding Toby in his arms and about to sit on the back of the car, on the back seat with him to have more room, more space. And so when his fiancee looks into Toby's eyes, he tells my brother his eyes are blue, because his eyes were originally brown, but his fiancee grew concerned and alarmed when he saw that change in his eyes, and he was alerting my brother, "We have to go now. Toby, his eyes have changed into blue, and I don't know what's going on, but he's going to leave us soon." And so my brother jumped into the car, and so they stormed away to the vet's office. And so 5 minutes before making it to the vet's office, his fiancee yells from the back, Toby is leaving us. Toby is leaving us." And so my brother extended his arm backwards to grab his paw, and he passed away. He passed away peacefully. He never had pain from anything unless he went through the surgery, because he would need to go through chemo. But thankfully, he never did. So he was never alone. He always had a fear of abandonment because he was adopted. He was a good boy from Oklahoma. He was taken away from his mother and put for adoption. And so my brother, all the way back in Florida, he was browsing online because he wanted to adopt a puppy back in late 2009, early 2010. So he saw Toby, whose original name was Titan, and so he decided that Titan was the one that he wanted to adopt, even if he was all the way in Oklahoma. So my brother paid for everything, and Titan, who became Toby, arrived on the same day of my birthday, my 17th birthday, March 5 of 2010. And in the beginning, he had to put him in the bathroom because it was tiny and safe and comfy for him to lose the fear of his new owners and to get used to a new environment. And ironically, in his last days of life on Earth, he returned to the bathroom. But he was a very good boy. He always wanted to shred the mailman. He always wanted to shred the pizza guy as well. He wasn't a very big dog. He was quite small. He was a mix between a pug and I'm not sure if the other half was a pinscher. Um, he weighed at about 25 pounds. One time he went up to 28 or 30. He was a very chunky boy. Um, he he loved eating everything. And just like every dog, I think, he would sit down next to you looking at your food and you would talk to him and he just did not give a shit about you. He wanted your food. And one of the we spent 5 years close to Toby, but not too close because we at first during the first 2 years of living in Florida we were 30 minutes from each other. But then when they moved closer to us, it was a 10-minute car drive. We don't have a car. So it was very difficult to visit Toby often because we would have to pay for taxi. So that would be like $16 back and forth to visit them. So we couldn't really visit Toby often, but we were able to see him the past 3 years, a bit more often, but not as much as we wanted to. But I want to share with you one of my favorite memories from Toby that I will never forget. And that was when he was 3 years old, almost 4, back in 2013 when we moved from Puerto Rico to Atlanta. My brother and his fiancée visited us there with Toby for about a week. And I went to the bathroom to pee. TMI, I'm sorry. So I went to the bathroom to do my business. I left the door closed but not shut. So I am there minding my business, right, with my panties down, and I hear a sniff under the door. And so I'm like, Toby, I'm here. I'll be there with you in a moment. Although he couldn't understand, obviously, because he's a dog. So he pushed the door open with his head. And he stormed into the bathroom and started to chew on my panties, down my legs. He saw my panties, started to chew on them and pull them off of me. He started to yank on them, playing as if it was a rope or something. And so I started to laugh, to scream, and so my mom came in, my aunt, my brother, his fiance, and everybody was in the bathroom with me while I was trying to pee in peace. And I had the whole gang after me in the bathroom watching me with my panties down. Goodness gracious. So, and they were trying to pull him off of me so that he would stop chewing and pulling on my panties, and that was like super, super awkward. But that's one of my favorite memories with Toby that I will never forget. He was a very good boy with all of us, very protective. Very, very protective. And one time, 2017, Hurricane Irma, Category 3, It shredded us, absolutely shredded us. It could have been worse, but it was only a category 3, thank goodness. But it was a very spooky experience. And so that time we stayed with them because they live on the second floor, we live on the third floor. So we decided to stay with them for the night or 2 nights, kind of, um, to pass the hurricane there. And so the night of the hurricane, when the hurricane was on our asses that night, around 2 to 4 in the morning. Of course, you can never really sleep too well with a hurricane on top of you. So we were trying to do our best to just rest, close our eyes, and just be there. So I am asleep, and I felt someone sneezing on my face. And so I was jolted awake. And so when I look to my side on the floor, there is Toby standing right next to me, breathing on my face just to wake me up, just for the hell of it. And so I'm like touching his head, and I'm like, I'm here, Toby, let me sleep. And so he turned around and left, and I could hear his chain dangling because he had like a charm dangling. They left him with a harness on in case we all needed to relocate elsewhere under the apartment or somewhere else. So Toby was ready to go at any point. And I would try to fall asleep again, and then I would hear the charm clinking, clang, clang, clang. And then I would open my eyes and see Toby next to me. One time that night, he jumped into the bed to wake us up just for the hell of it, just to make sure that we were alive. My guess, of course. And it was a very interesting and funny experience to have with him. We knew that he was guarding the place. Sometimes during the night, he would briefly walk by into the bedroom, look at us, mainly look at me because I was facing the doorway, which was at the end of the bed. He would look at me. If I moved, he would turn his head at me and then leave. So he was very watchful, very protective of us that night, and that is also another memory that I will not forget. And another memory that I have with him was also in 2017. At some point later, I think it was either October or November. I have the picture with the date. I'm not sure if it was his birthday, which was in November, or Thanksgiving, because his birthday was on the 20th of November. And I have a picture with him, which is one of my favorite memories with him, and you'll see it later after this video. So I am sitting on the floor. I love to sit on the floor against the couch. I am very simple. And so Toby was resting right behind me with a toy. I'm not sure if it was a turtle or something. So he is pulling on the legs, I guess, of the turtle or whatever. You know that some doggy toys have these long extensions for the dogs to pull on and to chew and to just destroy. So he is right behind me on the couch, lying down and chewing on a toy and pulling it and yanking it and all that stuff, right? And so at some point I feel something behind me like pushing me. And so when I look back, Toby is right behind me, pushing me with the toy that he's holding in his mouth so that I would play with him. And so I took a picture of him, like a selfie. You will be able to see half of my face and Toby looking at me with his toy in his mouth while pushing at me. And that is also one of my other favorite memories with Toby. And so that's how I want to remember him. I want to remember him as a very happy and protective good boy that gave us all his unconditional love. And I wanted to thank Anubis for taking him in his embrace. I don't think any of us will have another pet. I'm sure my brother doesn't want to. And I wouldn't want to either. Some people do it because they feel a little bit better. But just knowing that this scenario will repeat itself again, I don't think it's something that any of us are ready to go through again at any point in the future. And if you are a pet owner yourself, you might be able to relate if you have had a pet pass on. If you haven't yet, you might have those fears. And it's understandable. It's perfectly understandable. And, you know, I don't know what to tell you right now, but there really is no wrong way to mourn the loss of a pet. It's also perfectly fine if you don't want to have another pet after losing one yourself. Or if you haven't had a pet, but you have had those thoughts of this process. It's okay. It's okay to feel however you feel, whether you want to continue to have pets or not. It's perfectly acceptable. And something that Anubis has taught me, besides letting go, is to not judge myself for feeling the way that I feel, for not acting a certain way during this whole process. So, for this transition of Toby, my biggest lessons have been letting go, expressing myself however I want to express myself, and to be accepting, to not judge myself for how I choose to express this mourning process. It's going to take time, of course. Of course. This is something that you definitely do not want to rush. This is not a competition. This is not about showing off how tough and strong you are, how courageous you are. It's about simply being. So, again, there isn't really a focus for this video. I just wanted to express myself a little bit, what's going on, what happened. I didn't want to leave another empty week without a video. I know I did that 2 weeks ago because I forgot and I couldn't film during a thunderstorm. I don't want to be inconsistent again, and I apologize that this video is very different from the usual. and also super, super long. uh, I guess I like to talk, but if you're still here, I wanted to thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully next week I might feel a little bit better from all of this. So, as always, take care, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.